Good afternoon, everyone, from wherever you are. I hope you are all keeping safe and doing well in this time. Today, the talk, as Giles mentioned, is about how to make better decisions. And one might ask, why a talk about making decisions? So first, because you all agree with me, decision is about choice. We all find ourselves at forkroads in our lives and in our work, and we have to make choices that are very important. Decisions at the end of the day are what shape our life, what shape our destiny. As CFO, we have a huge responsibility for our organization, and the choices and decisions that we make have great influence on the company. And it's very important that we recognize that and we work to get better at it. The choices that we make are important and are also important when we make no choice, because no decision is still a decision. And when Giles and the team at WFS approached me earlier for a talk, I was going to discuss a different topic. Then came along COVID-19 and all the unique experience that all of us had to go through. And he highlighted again the importance of making decisions, in particular during uncertain time, and how we make those choices. Now, it is important when we start to ask ourselves where we stand when it comes to decision making. And I want to ask you the question, and I will be very grateful if you will take part of this poll. There will be a couple of questions. First one is, how soon will you say you make decisions? Are you someone who make them very slowly, assuming that you are, or sometimes even before all the facts are available, which one could argue is too quickly, or are you making them very quickly? As soon as all the facts are available, you make your decisions. So on a scale from 1 to 10, will you please take part of the poll and indicate how soon you think you make decisions? We'll give 10 seconds to answer the question. Very good. See, most of us think that we, range between 3 and 8. That's where the majority is. Some are even 2. Well done. So 7 is the average of the group. Well, not the average, but the majority of the group with 26%. Thank you. The second question that I have for you is, once you make that decision, how soon do you change your decisions? Do you change them very quickly, as soon as you have new facts available? Or are you someone who won't change those decisions previously made that quickly and will change them only very slowly or only after careful consideration? Again, let's take 10 seconds to go through this question. Very good. I see again a lot of 7. Few 1s, few 2s. Five more seconds. Let's make quick decisions. Excellent. Thank you. So again, about 26% of us say 7 on changing our decision, which is very good. If you were in the group that made decision as soon as very quickly, so you had the 7 in the first question and another 7 on the second question, your decision-making skills will be rated as very good. If we go by the definition or the quote of Napoleon Hill, as some of you will know, wrote a very successful book on the personal development, and Think and Grow Rich is one of his most recognizable books. And he used to say that successful people make decisions quickly, as soon as all the facts are available, and change them very slowly. Now, I know that personally, I struggle sometimes with decision making being what some people will call rational, in trying to make decisions, trying to consider everything carefully. So sometimes the quality of my decision could be impacted by the fact that I would tend to take too long to make those decisions sometimes, or being quick to change them in case something happens. And that's something that we want to watch. And in the talk today, I want to share with you a couple of points that I think can help you and help us all improve on our decision making. Because I think there is a problem when it comes to decision making. And the problem is that we are surrounded by an environment where people want to control our decisions, whether it is your manager at work, whether it's your family environment. We live also in a day and age where information is sharing a lot. You've got a lot of interaction on social media, pressure from the outside world to the world of politics and media, and we can get overwhelmed and influence on our decisions and get impacted on what we do. In a corporate environment, it is also the different interactions and the politics internally that play on the choices that we have to make, that we need to navigate to. And unfortunately, most people are not taught how to make decisions. And as things get more and more complicated and we are not taught how to make decisions, this is seen a lot where people get promoted to managerial roles or to higher senior responsibilities, but never get worked through how to make those decisions that they confronted, how to make those choices, how to get more influential, and improving the quality of the choice we make. Now, 25 minutes is not long enough to cover such an important topic. So if you want to continue the conversation, Giles will share in the chat in a moment a link where you can go. You will be able to download this presentation and be able to go through it again after the call. You also have a couple of worksheets for some exercise and the additional resources on decision making. And I invite you to go through and have a look at the page. Now, we are used to some complex models, that are available on the market that people share. And my experience of that, and you probably agree with me, is that they are too complex. A number of those comments, are about step 1, step 2, step 3. If this is not met, go there. Very complex decision making that really don't work. And the essential reason why they don't work is because only 5% of our cognitive activities are conscious, and decision making is highly impacted by that reality. A lot of everything that we do is driven by our unconscious brain activities, and our decisions, our emotions, our actions, our behaviors are highly subjective to these unconscious activities. Now, there's Antonio Damasio, who did a lot of work around that, and he conducted an experiment actually where he realized that people who have damage in the part of the brain that controls our emotions will struggle making decisions. It's very important for us to recognize this because we approach decision making a lot from a very rational point of view. That would be what you find a lot in the finance community. But we need to recognize that a lot of decision making is driven by emotions. And as we get experience, as we get exposed to more and more decision making, what we construct, as Damasio would say, as wisdom, is how we manage those emotions, how we get aware, how we are aware, well aware of the role and the importance of the emotion in our decision making, and how we navigate that. And this is a very, very important. And we can see it in what psychologists call decision-making biases. There are essentially two groups of decision-making biases: cognitive biases, that you recognize a lot of them on this page. For us in finance, sunk cost bias is one of the one that impact and influence a lot when we make decisions. This is where we tend to hold on to previously made decisions because we've invested so much in terms of time, efforts, energy, money, so much that we struggle to move away from those initial decisions. There are also other category of biases, which are cultural biases that impact a lot also the decision that we make. And we need to be very well aware of that in our personal lives, but also at work. And the culture of the company you are working for, and the environment and the dynamic in the team has a great deal of impact also on the decision making. And it's very important to recognize these biases, to educate ourselves and work on overcoming them, and be conscious about them when we make the decisions. Now, how do we bring more rationality in those decisions? You know, we talk about decision making and the influence of the conscious mind and the unconscious, and the emotion and our rationality. And if we want to bring more rationality in our decision making, I think we can take lessons from the world of physics. I did mathematics and physics as majors when I graduated from high school. So I've got very deep interest on the subject. And Elon Musk is famously quoted about first principles and how he approached decision making. And he shares in a very popular video how he came about deciding to launch SpaceX, for example. He was dreaming about the exploration of Mars, and started to get interested in everything that goes into preparing such trip. And the first thing is about the rocket and preparing a rocket for the launch to space. And he recognized very quickly how expensive that was, and a lot about the cost of the space exploration is because the rockets are usually single used. And he wanted to break that down and come to a point where he could make the trip more affordable. And that was the beginning of the SpaceX story. And you've seen over the past few weeks how successful they were launching the 2 astronauts to the International Space Station. And I think we can take lessons from that in the work that we do in our role as CFO, and develop the thinking from first principle. So what is first principle? First principle is, as Aristotle would say, the basis from which a thing is known. And for us is what is the basic fundamental truth? What is something of the concept or the assumptions on which we can base our decision? You know, something that everybody will recognize as absolute truth, as opposed to some personal truth that are polluted by our cognitive biases or the cultural biases of the environment we operate in. Now, to reason from first principle, I will give you 3 elements that are at the core of this idea. First is about clarifying your beliefs. Now, and then the second point is put function over forms. I'll explain in a moment what that means. And deconstruct and reconstruct, which in the example of Elon Musk was about breaking down the cost of the rocket and identifying the individual costs of the different components and going after it to break down and get to a more affordable project. First, when it comes to establishing clarifying your belief, it's about establishing the facts. What is it that is absolutely true? The question that will go to you in order to make a decision over. Most of the time, if you challenge that question, you will find that the resolution is in the way the question is addressed. So clarifying what is really true about the point that we are trying to make. Then when it comes to functional reform, this is where our natural tendency of thinking is looking at the form of the topic that we address rather than asking ourselves what we are really trying to accomplish. A lot of energy and resources in the organization are wasted on projects because we don't really get to the bottom of what is it that we are really trying to accomplish. And the same goes in our personal life. And asking ourselves this fundamental question will make a lot of difference. And deconstruct, reconstruct is what I talked to you about, bringing things into different components and reasoning it up from there. The natural tendency that we have is reasoning by analogy, which is our default way of thinking. And moving to reasoning from first principle will require efforts and energy. It takes time. Than reasoning from analogy. It's also very relevant when it comes to breakthrough ideas and cutting edge projects that you are working on. So that's the limitation of the first principle reasoning, that sometimes it is not applicable in all environments. But I think what you can do is establish clearly first principles that guide your primary choices, and then apply the reasoning by analogy, which is our default mode of thinking, for speed and consistency in your decision making. The next 3 points I want you to make is some of the questions that I get asked a lot by people when it comes to decision making is, how do I know that I've made the right decision? Yes, Matt, you're talking about reasoning from first principle, but at the end of the day, how do I know that I've made the right decision? And my answer is always, you will not always be right. And I think it's time for all of us to be comfortable with that idea. As a leader, it's not about being always right, but it's about getting it right. Making sure that we have the process and the steps making the decision, even if the answer doesn't come from us, but we have taken the steps so that the answer is delivered for the benefit of the organization. And at the end of the day, make the decision. If you don't like the outcome, you can always change the decision. And always have a clear answer to the question, why am I doing this? This is a point that is very critical, for example, to fight the sunk cost biases. Always ask yourself, if I was to start this project today, would I do it? If it's an important decision in your personal life, and you have to make a choice, ask you that question, why, and why not doing it. The second question I get asked a lot is, how do I know that I have enough information? We talked about the steps, which is clarifying the question, clarifying your belief. That requires gathering information around the topic. I think it is very important to rely on believable parties. And believable parties are people who know what they are talking about, who are experts in the field, and can give you the advice for the topics. Now, one thing that we see in the organization is the confusion around who has to make the decisions. And this is also a very important point about gathering the information. Sometimes we confuse people who are advised with the person willing to make the decision. So having a clear definition of who is doing what on the different steps is very important as well at this stage. So always explore the scenarios, establish the principle in advance, and set deadlines for making the decision, because there will always be new information out there, and you cannot wait to have all the information to make decisions. You need to set yourself a deadline and make sure that you have enough to move on. The third question that I wanted to share is people always ask, what if my decision hurt other people? I remember one person coming to me and saying, I always make the decisions. I know what I need to do, but it's difficult for me to implement because I don't want to hurt that person or the other. I think it's all about clarifying your intention. I put on the slide here power versus love, which one could ask, okay, what does that mean? It's everything that we do, and the most and you probably will see it in somebody earlier slide when you go back to it. The urge to feel special is what drives a lot of our choices. The urge to feel special, the status element is what drives a lot of our decisions. And it plays a lot in the working environment where you have power struggles and politics going on a lot. And sometimes the people being on different edge of that game could find it difficult to position on them and bring forward their views. So it's very important to understand whether the choice or the decision that you are making is solely from a position of power, or you are doing it because it's the right thing to do and has been considered and the right thing for the organization. The other thing is to have in mind is that when you say no to something, or when you say yes to someone, you are saying no to another. So if you are finding it difficult to push for your decisions because you are afraid of hurting other people, think about who else you are saying no to by holding back on that choice or on that decision. And the third important point is the balancing the trade-off. There's always trade-off to be made. Balancing short-term and long-term is an endless debate in the world of finance and the role of CFO, but it's a very important point to have in mind when you make decisions. And ultimately, it's all about communication. Communicate. That's what will make your decision hold and make sure that your views is shared and identified by your company. Now, at this point, you probably feel like drinking from the fire hose. I've been going on for 25 minutes non-stop there. So I recognize it's a lot of information in a very short period of time. Again, as I said, you can go to the link shown here, and that Giles will share again, where you will get a copy of the presentation with one exercise that you can do on identifying your whys. And I'm also giving you the opportunity to join us for a 21-day challenge on decision making, where I will be able to answer a lot more of your questions.